Alrighty, welcome back, boys and girls. It's your main math man, Ms. Shank, coming to you live from Alameda International High School. In this video, we're working still with some linear functions, but we're talking about a system of equations since we have more than one linear function. And we know it's going to be a linear function because it has to form that straight line. So I'm going to do a couple examples. I'll give you one to try on your own, two more examples, and then we'll try some IXL sections. So one thing at a time. Let's do this. It says graph the linear functions and then write the ordered pair that is the solution to the equations. And so I'm going to have an x and a y value that works for both of these equations, and I can see it visually on the graph. And so some reminders on how to graph these functions. Again, make sure you're first looking at that y-intercept. So if this is our first equation, y equals -7/3 times x plus 3. We're saying that this is going to be our y-intercept. Again, that's where our graph of our line hits the y-axis. So that means it hits at the point of 0, 3. So I can plot that point, 0, 3. And I have my first point for the graph, or excuse me, for this function. And then what I can do is I can now use this slope. So this is our slope, and we can use our slope to be able to build a staircase or find my next order pair. So it says this, it says my change in y is -7, so my change in y is -7, my change in x is +3. So that means I have to go down 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 3 to the right, 1, 2, 3. Plot that point, and now I have 2 points that go on this first line, and so now I can graph it like this. So I'm going to say, all right, this equation right here is going to be this blue line. So I'm going to use that straight edge, make sure you go through both points, and so I can say, all right, something like this is going to be that equation. You need to make sure that you are using two different colors, or if you aren't using different colors, you want to at least label that these are, two different functions. So that's my first function. And I can say for my next function, I'll do it in red, we'll say, let's plot these points. So I have my y-intercept of -3. So I plot that point 0, -3. And then I can use that slope. So it's saying I go down, so down 1 and right 3. So make sure you're reminding yourself how that slope works. So now I say, all right, from 0, 3, I can go down 1 and to the right 3. And if you notice, hey, I already have a point on that graph and it works out. So I'm going to say, all right, those 2 points go on the red line, which is going to be y equals -1/3 times x minus 3. So if this is the equation, or excuse me, the line for this equation, then I can say, hey, okay, when I'm looking for the solution that works for both of these equations, I have to say, well, what point do they intersect? Meaning, what point do they cross over? Because it's very obvious to find out. You'd say, hey, it's boom, Ms. Shank, it's right there. I can see it right there. But I need to know, okay, what's that ordered pair? I need an x value and a y value. So I'd say, okay, if it's this point here, it'd be 3 and -4. So I'd say my point of intersection or the solution point is 3, -4. So again, super simple. It becomes a lot easier once you're graphing these out on the coordinate plane. So now it says for, make sure it's on there. Okay. For number 2, same idea. 2 functions, graph them on the coordinate plane, and then see where they intersect. All right. So again, remember, always going to be in the form y equals mx plus b, where b is your y-intercept and m is your slope. So I'm going to say, all right, I have that point of -6. So I have -6. And I can go 1 step up. So I go 1 up and 2 right. Again, be careful. Use those keywords to your benefit. If it is change in y, it has to go up or down, where up is positive, down is negative. And for change in x, it's going to be left or right, where left is negative and right is positive. Okay, so I go 1 up and 2 to the right to get my next point, and I can draw the line. So let me have our line for our function, which is here. in blue. So I'm going to say, all right, this equation in blue is graphed on the coordinate plane. And we notice kind of how this works out. We're saying, hey, the slope is going to the right, up and to the right, which means it's a positive slope. And then for this next one, it has y equals negative x, and that's it. So kind of always remind yourself, well, what part of this is going to be the slope and what part is that y-intercept? And so if you need to, you can say, hey, it's plus 0, which we don't need to write because it's already there. But in case you want to be redundant, you can say, hey, I know that that value when x equals 0, y also equals 0. So that means it goes through the origin. So that y-intercept for this equation is going to be 0, 0. And then we know the slope, if I don't see a number there, but I could say, hey, I know it's going to be negative 1 over positive 1, because I can always write that slope as a fraction. And so if it doesn't have that 1 there, I can write it for myself. So that just means I go down 1 and to the right 1. So down 1 to the right 1 to get my next order pair. And now I can draw my line since I have 2 points on the coordinate plane. So let's see, I have 2 points on the coordinate plane. Again, take your time when you're doing this. And I see a lot of people making mistakes if they're rushing. Make sure you take your time, make sure it makes sense. Pause the video at any point, make sure you can ask questions. So now it says, all right, what's that point of intersection? We're gonna say, hey, it's gonna be at that point right here where it's gonna be x is 4 and y is negative 4. Again, make sure you can kind of see how this is working. That's saying that if we were to plug this point in, so when x is negative 4, or excuse me, when x is 4, y would be negative 4. And then we can say for that first equation, blue, when x is 4, we say 1/2 times 4 is 2. 2 minus 6 is negative 4. So it still works out both times. So again, make sure you see these two examples. Pause the video for yourself. Try the your turn out for yourself. Again, find the y-intercept. Use the slope to get your next order pairs. Graph the line through both points and do the same for the second equation, and make sure you can have that order pair for yourself. Again, make sure you can pause the video, check for yourself, and also you can just say, hey, Ms. Shank, what is this one right? Okay, moving on, next example, number 4. Y-intercept is 2, so I have positive 2. Then I use that slope of negative 4 over 3. So I go down, so let me write that. So negative 4 over 3, so down 4, and right 3, right 3. You can always want to take your time, change in y over change in x. And so I can go down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and to the right 3, 1, 2, 3. So again, make sure those points, are directly in that corner when you're graphing them out. So now I can graph this line of the function y equals negative 4 over 3 times x plus 2. All right, and then I can have my second equation, similar situation, but it has y equals 4 over 3 times x minus 6. So get that y-intercept right away. My y-intercept, where it hits the graph at negative 6, or excuse me, hits the y-axis at negative 6. So I can say, all right, now I go 4 up, 3 to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3 to the right, 1, 2, 3, and it's actually already graphed for us, and that's going to be our point of intersection. Again, make sure that it's nice and easy for yourself. Make sure it goes through those 2 points. We're saying, okay, let me make sure I label those like so. And then we're saying, okay, what's going to be that point of intersection? Well, we'd say it's going to be the point 3, negative 2. So when x is 3, the y value would be negative 2 for both of these equations. On the back, last example that I'll show for you, and then I'll put you on your own. So last example. So then it says, make sure this is on here, there we go. Y equals negative 3 over 5 times x minus 5. So I have the point of negative 1 is going to be our y-intercept, and then we have 3 to the left, or sorry, let's do 3 down, and 5 right. Always gotta use those keywords. So I go 1, 2, 3 down, 5 to the right. And I have my next point, and so now I can have my equation for y equals negative 3 or 5 times x minus 1. All right, and then let's do this last equation. It has y equals 2 over 5 times x. Make sure you can say, well, I know that y-intercept is going to be 0, so that goes through the point 0, 0, and I go 2 to the right, 1, 2, and 5 down, so 5 down. Understand? Okay, 2 to the right, 5 down, or sorry, let's back up. Make sure you take your time. Mistakes can be made. Let's do this. Let's say 2 up. There we go. 2 up, 5 right. I knew something seemed off on that. So 2 up, so 1, 2, and then 5 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. So we have 2 up, 5 right. Make sure it goes through point 0, 0. So when x is 5, y is 2. Okay, making sure. Now I can graph the point, or excuse me, graph the line for that function and say, all right, it's going to go through those values. Let's have like this. We're saying, okay, it's going to go through that point, and it's kind of in the middle there. So let's actually double check. Let's see if we have when x is negative 1, when x is negative 1, y is going to be negative 2 over 5. So it'd be, okay, right in the middle there. Let's say it's going to be when x is negative 1, when x is negative 1, y is negative 2 over 5. So a little weird one on that one, just because it's, you know, not directly in the center there, but that's okay as long as we're able to see, hey, that's the point where they intersect at that, where they cross over, then we're good. Again, feel free to pause, rewind, anything you need, but make sure you're reading the directions at the very top for yourself. So it says in number 6, 7, and 8, use the space in those numbers to show your work for IXL grade 8 section CC2, which I will show you right now. So again, make sure, pause the video, pull up that tab, make sure you can see where I'm at. So in your, let me make sure it's on the screen, something like that maybe. How about there? We'll say, all right, again, make sure you're on grade 8 CC2, and all we're saying is this, okay, I can solve the system of equations by graphing, and that's exactly what I've been doing. First graph the equations and then type the solution. So I have my 2 equations, and then again, it gives you this graph like so. And let me make sure it's on there. Yep. Okay, so we're saying this, let me do, how about there? Okay, so now it has our wonderful 2 equations. And so again, just like I've been doing, use that y-intercept. So I have positive 2 is going to be, so I have positive 2 as the first point. And then notice again, I have to graph another ordered pair. So use that slope. I have 3 over 5 means I go up 3 and to the right 5. And I can graph that line for that equation. Again, notice how it switches back and forth. You can kind of click the colors. Again, notice how it gives you those 2 different colors for 2 different equations. So then in the equation y equals 1 over 5x plus 4, I have positive 4 is my y-intercept, and I go 1 up and to the right 5 to get my ordered pair, and then I have that equation graphed out. So notice how I have 2 lines on the graph. That means I have those 2 equations. What's that solution point? That's where they intersect. Well, it's going to be when x is 5, y is also 5. So I'd say that solution point is going to be 5, 5, and I'm good. So again, make sure you can use that space in on the paper to kind of show your work for that. That way you get more practice with it and make sure you can try these out for yourself. Again, feel free to pause, rewind at any point in time, and as always, super slam that subscribe button.